I am not an angry black woman. In fact, I'm a very eager black woman that was born to make sure every woman in the world acquires real estate. You see, in 2001, I became a Mrs. That was my title. In 2009, I was Mrs. Denver. That was my title. It's 2019, and now I own real estate titles. The good deeds that we need to do as women is real estate. Those are the good deeds that we need in our lives. Women for centuries have been making it rain. We've been reigning emperors, pharaohs. We've ruled villages. We've nursed babies. We've been talking about our bottoms for centuries. I'm not talking about this voluptuous bottom. I'm talking about the bottom line. You see, I live in a neighborhood that was an urban planned neighborhood. I have a background in architecture and design and urban planning and learned about neighborhoods like this. These are neighborhoods that have affordable housing, homes that are over $1 million, and everything in between. And just a few months ago, there was a word that was on a bridge by my home. A couple words. It said, F you niggers. Who knew? Who knew in this neighborhood that I spent so much time celebrating diversity that this would happen? But it turns out it can happen in anybody's neighborhood and in your own backyard. So instead, we got together and we celebrated. The neighborhood was called Stapleton by a KKK leader. Interestingly enough, that weekend they decided to remind us of the KKK. These are the words that my children would have to see as they go to school. But because I'm not an angry black woman, I got eager about it. We came together. You see, in 1968, while Martin Luther King was trying to figure out how to create segregation and fight it, women were trying to figure out voting rights. There were a group of men that were coming together, and they were figuring out strategy to create shares of real estate called REITs. Real Estate Investment Trusts was an act in legislation that allowed men to buy a lot of real estate. They were buying lots of property. You see, as women, we think about purses and acquiring them. Today, you're going to be thinking about property. Stop buying all these purses. Let's start buying property. Aretha Franklin actually says it best. RESPECT. Found out what it means to me. Real estate. Real estate is what it means. The only way that we can change our communities is by owning it. As women, we have all this guilt. Are we good enough? Are we black enough? Are we strong enough? We're all of that. You see, I'm a little complicated. We all are. I'm proud about being complicated because there's two sides to every story. Words such like equity, appreciation, value, these are words that mean a lot to me in real estate. I work for a luxury real estate company, and I also work with affordable housing and go to homeless shelters and million-dollar homes, gated communities, segregated communities, and communities that are reinventing themselves. Communities where there's gentrification. How in the world are you going to change gentrification if you don't own the land? Well, my goal is to make sure that through philanthropy, say it, philanthropy, let it roll off your tongue. Philanthropy, it's not just a word, it's not a noun, it's not a verb, it's a movement. It's a movement that today, tomorrow, and the next day in Denver were two rebel women, Molly Brown and Madam C.J. Walker, the first self-made woman millionaire. Together they got together and said, even though she was the daughter of a slave and used to be seen as property, today I sell property. Today I help other people acquire property because white women, black women, people who consider themselves women, disabled women, all women have discovered that owning who we are, the land that we live in, the buildings that we're in, and the communities that we develop, we were born to build communities. They say behind every great man is a woman. I mean, that's obvious. However, behind the word real estate investment trust, we're going to move it on over and put a W in front of it. For our worth, women, real estate investment trust. where a woman who is in school, a child who's in a classroom who can't afford to buy her books, a trust fund baby, a woman of means, a banker, a lawyer, and even a prostitute can learn how to get together through collaboration and own real estate by owning shares. You see, we come from a history of gatherers. You hear about the women gatherers. Have you heard about the women hunters? Because we were hunters and gatherers. We made sure that villages were taken care of. Black women in Africa used to nurse babies that weren't theirs. These same black women in the United States who were brought here on ships had roots and still were nursing babies. Now we have women in NICU who are giving up their breast milk, whether they're Jewish, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, or just don't identify with any culture because they're all mixed up. We're still nursing communities. I want to encourage each and every one of you to understand that purses don't bring power. Property does. Think about it. We have a president who's seen women as property, who has sold property, who's made millions as property, and has started wars over properties. Men have fought over property for years. Hell, they try to build a great wall, a wall that someone else is going to pay for to create boundaries. But little do they know, women, we don't respond well to boundaries. In fact, we like to break boundaries. So we are breaking the boundaries of thinking that real estate's difficult. Here's a little secret. It's really easy. Buy low, sell high. Equity. This is the equity that makes me tingle. The equity where you have an appreciation and the net income is what matters. So when people talk about the N-word, the one that was in my neighborhood, my favorite N-word is net. Net worth, network, and property. We are a collaboration of people who, as women, know how to get together and handle business. We take care of business like nobody else. Imagine if every single person had the ability to own property by collaborating with other people to be able to have shares and to buying entire buildings. I used to drive by neighborhoods and wonder, how in the world does somebody buy that entire office building? You see, I am in residential real estate and messed around and got my husband in commercial real estate. A 6'7" black man and a mighty strong black woman in the world of real estate. And it's not even about being a black thing. Although I will say, staying in the black is much better than being in the red. But today was complicated for me because it's very emotional. Because real estate has ruined communities, but it also has changed communities for the better. So when a coffee shop says, proud to be gentrifying, and you spend all day in a church with communities trying to figure out how we can make it better, and the next day you go to a sales meeting in a luxury real estate office, and they're trying to understand where we're going to get our coffee next. Two very different conversations about gentrification. But both women and men alike, rich women, wealthy women, the Rockefellers, the Kennedys, the Obamas, and the Paces, have to continue to figure out ways to create generational wealth for women all over the world. This movement of philanthroperty is using property to purchase power, to use the acquisition of property to gain investments, to put back into philanthropy, what we already do. Instead of being at a boardroom trying to figure out how to sell a table, to give or get, imagine if you had an endowment that allowed you to pass on wealth for multiple generations by simply and only buying low and selling high. This simple concept, 1 + 1 = 2. There is no such thing as too much money. There's no such thing as too much time. But it is time for us to reinvest in our properties and each other as women. The woman to your left and the woman to your right is your partner. The woman in Denver, like Molly Brown and Madam C.J. Walker, got together and bought a whole lot of property. And it got greater and greater and greater. So please join me in the movement of philanthropy. Say it. Oh, I love it when you talk to me like that. Philanthropy. This is the power of property, people, and possessions. Not the possessions you're thinking about. I'm talking real estate and net proceeds. Join me in this movement as I pull together women from all over the nation and all over the world to own a piece of our land and have high return on our investment. Philanthropy. Thank you.